What's going on? It's Jack. I'm back. This is my weekly update and also like my wrap up on uh, August as well as what's my TBR and how that reading's going in September. Uh, it's been a couple weeks here. My phone broke, which is how I film everything. So that's been a nightmare, and honestly, just life gets ahead of you sometimes. But I have continued reading, so I want to give updates on where I stood at the end of last month and what I finished, how those went, and what I'm reading this month, what I'm planning to read this month, what I've read this month in September of 2025. So let's take a look here. Last month, the first book I finished was Pines by Blake Crouch. Uh, I really enjoyed it. I would give that. What did I give that? I would give that 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a good sort of M. Night Shyamalan sort of deal. I'm going to read the second one. I don't know. It's going to be this month, maybe next month. It gives like a little bit of an October feel as a whole, but I would say this is my second favorite book I read this past month. Really enjoyed it. Flew through it. I like a nice, like, sort of short, sort of sci-fi-ish thriller. If you haven't read Pines, really the story is a guy who's part of the government. He works for, what is it, the Secret Service, and he's called out to find missing members who were also in the Secret Service who have gone missing in this town called Wayward Pines in, I believe it's Idaho, and weird stuff ensues. He wakes up in the hospital because he's been in a car crash right when he arrives to the town, and really trying to break through and understand, like, why is everyone in this town so weird? Why is everything going so weird? And chaos ensues, and then there's a big sort of M. Night Shyamalan twist. I know when I got like halfway through, I was like, this feels like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and I looked it up, and he made a TV show about it. Never seen it. Might watch it once I finish the whole series. It's a trilogy. I do think it's a worthwhile read overall. The second book I read was Stormfront, book 1 in the Dresden Files. It was fun. I gave it 3 stars. I think I said this before. It's like a bad USA show in book 1. I know it's supposed to pick up better. I've heard 3 or 4 it gets to a better deal, but I know for a fact book 1 and 2 are not good. I enjoyed book 1 overall. If you're looking for something that's like kind of low pressure so far, that's how I would describe at least the first book as, like, come in, it's like a TV show where like dramatic things happen, but you're not like losing your mind by any means. There's nothing out of this world amazing by any means. The third book I was working on was The Failures. I didn't finish that. Main reason why was I was like trying to force myself to read it, and this isn't my job. I read for enjoyment, so I'm not saying I won't ever pick it up, because I did enjoy the first 50, 60 pages, but it was like nothing had grasped me to be like, you gotta come back here. So I might save it for near the end of the year. Not sure yet, but that was really how I was feeling towards that book. I would like to read it, but not in a total rush, especially because it's the first book of a series. Maybe book 2 comes out at some point and it's like everything sort of picks up and people get excited about it. Maybe I'll get into it. Third book I started reading was Kingdoms of Death. I finished that. Favorite book of the month, 4 stars. What I'm trying to do now is not do half stars, quarter stars, anything like that. I just want to give it a rating 1 through 5 or 0. I don't think I'll ever give it a 0, but I want to keep to that because it holds you more accountable for like more strict ratings, I would say. And I think that kind of keeps you honest to be like, you're not arguing between like 4.25 and 4.5 because like maybe I liked this book better than that one, but they're around the same, and I want to like say I like this better than that one. I'm just going to keep it at whole numbers from now on. Loved that book. If you haven't read the Sun Eater series, it's a book 4, Kingdom of Death. But what I love about the Sun Eater series as a whole is the motivation and kind of what Hadrian Marlowe is like going through and learning each sort of step through book 1 through 4 is very different. So like book 1 is kind of him forming his identity and like how he's going to get there, which is like a standard sort of for book 1 where it's like character, how can they change sort of deal. And book 2 is let's flip this entire goal that we had created at the end of book 1. Let's flip it on its head. Everything you thought you knew very much changes. And there's a huge twist in that one. And then book 3 is kind of the creation of like the legend of Hadrian Marlowe of and him learning how to navigate like the political system that and you get a great understanding of the politics of this world. That's my favorite, which is Demon in White. And then book 4 is more of like the consequences of his actions. He kind of gets built up as this sort of like great hero through books 1 through 3, who like makes it through everything. Like there's no problems, he can get through everything. And book 4 is kind of follows the name Kingdom of Death. He falls into the tragedy. The tragedy happens, and I'm very excited for in book 5 of how can he dig himself out of everything he's experienced in book 4 and everything he's going through and the lives lost and everyone and everything that's like affected his story as a whole. How does he move on, and also how does that affect the overarching story of how does he get to the point where he kills billions of people by blowing up a sun. And secondarily, in Kingdom of Death, you also learn sort of book 3 was like the politics system, and then book 4 is kind of like the fantasy aspects, because you read books 1 through 3 and you're like, this is a sci-fi. This is very much like very, very sci-fi. And then you get through book 4 and you're like, there's a lot of fantasy elements. There's magic sort of system, I would say. Like things really change in book 4 and you gain an understanding of those changes a lot better. So love that book. Favorite book of the year, or book of the month. Not my favorite book of the year. But that wraps up my sort of August. I didn't read any manga. I want to really bad, but I'm trying to read whatever is calling to me in the moment, and that hasn't been it. So what's my TBR and book I have completed so far in September? This is, I believe it's Saturday, like the 14th or something like that. We're like halfway through the month, so a little bit late to the what am I going to read in September sort of deal. But what am I going to read in September, and what have I read? The first book I read was Full Moon, book 2 of the Dresden Files. I didn't plan on reading this, and then it was just an option from the library. I wish I didn't read it. Was not a fan. 1 star. Not many things I liked about it. It was just, it dragged. It was entirely just like dragging on, because I didn't care about like the character relationships and how they're changing. I hated that book. I know it was supposed to be bad. Gonna read book 3. I will make it through book 4 before the end of the year to make my decision if I will continue. I know this book's supposed to be like the worst one. It was. If book 3 is this bad, I won't continue. Hated it. That's the only book I've finished so far. I will say, a book I'm loving is Leviathan Wakes, which is book 1 of The Expanse. If you haven't read The Expanse or haven't heard of it, there's also an Amazon Prime show. I know it doesn't follow like the exact sort of deal that it's not one-to-one with the books, but I've heard both the show and the book series are different, but both really, really good. And one of my friends had actually told me about the book series a long time ago, but never finished the first book. So now that I started it, he's picked it back up. So we're going to kind of read it and talk about it together. But Leviathan Wakes, The Expanse, really we have 2 main characters in the first book. I can't speak to anything that happens in the total 9 books. But in the first book, we have Miller, who's like kind of like a failing sort of cop who's trying to solve a murder, or I guess not a murder. I don't know if that character's dead or not, but he's trying to solve a missing person case, and he lives on the belt, they call it. So it's the asteroid belt between, what is it, Jupiter and whatever, Mars. And so in this futuristic sci-fi world, the humanity has expanded to exist on other planets and be able to do that. There's no light speed, so it's very much within like the realm of what could physically happen. And there's Mars and Earth, and the belts are very much different sort of like governments, and they don't like each other. There's different sort of like racism and sort of like hierarchies that's built within it, and they war and faction. And then the other character's Holden is an earther. I think that would be what you call him. He's from Earth, and he works for a company where they take icebergs from frozen planets and bring them and like turn them into water. He's a shipper, and his ship gets attacked. He gets kidnapped, or not kidnapped. He gets attacked and spreads the word and kind of causes chaos of what's happening. So my read so far, I'm probably like 60-70% of the way through this book. Really enjoying it. Without telling any spoilers, one thing, it's very action packed, almost to the point where it like lulls you a bit, where it's like, if it's not action, because you've read 100 pages straight of just straight action, and you got like 30 pages of sort of dialogue and just communicating, sort of, it kind of lulls you in weird ways. But I do appreciate like everything picks up pretty quickly, as well as they're 10-page chapters, so you feel like you're accomplishing things constantly, which is huge for me and how I like to read. I like to finish on a chapter, get like the completion of like what's going on in this moment every time I read. I hate ending in the middle of chapters. That was my big issue with Hyperion, and I had problems with. Loved Hyperion. Don't write in the papers I didn't like Hyperion. I loved it. Those are things I'm loving. And also, I don't think I've read a book like this in a long time, where Holden, I would call him like the main character, despite there being like two main POVs. He's like very hard fast on like, I want to do the good thing, I'm going to do the right thing. He's very morally like straight line, like seems like morally perfect, which generally I feel like is a hard read, maybe not my favorite, but I'm really enjoying that character. And then Miller the cop is kind of all over the place, and because he's been jaded by being a cop and jaded by sort of being on the belt, which is in the hierarchy probably one of the lower rungs overall. Third book I'm working on, also like 60-70% of the way through, is Ashes of Man, book 5 of the Sun Eater series. Trying to get through this and Disquiet Gods before what is it, whatever time, I can't remember what the name of book 7 that comes out in November, but really prepping to get to that. Enjoying Ashes of Man. I think I'm gonna like it less than Kingdoms of Death, or pretty much. I think this one's gonna be like, my ranking so far is probably 3, 2, 4, 5. I don't know where we're gonna end up in 5. A little bit of the politics, which that's what I loved about Demon and White, was like the internal politics. That was my favorite part of the entire series, is Hadrian learning the politics. And there was a little bit of it at the start, but now we're moving towards more like action and solving, I would say, a lesser antagonist, like working towards a lesser antagonist, one that I care about, but not as much as Doryaika, the main villain in this. So I'm like in between on how much I'm gonna love this one, but saying all that, like, it very much still feels like a nice 4-star book for me. And then I don't know what I'm gonna read after that. So I still have half the month. I'm going to finish before the end of the week both Leviathan Wakes and Ashes of Man. And I'm probably going to start one of these this week, because I like to bounce around on books. as you can tell, I'm 60% of the way through 2 different books. Which one I'm gonna pick up, which is The Winter King, which is Bernard Cornwell, Arthurian, sort of Arthurian, I guess you would call it fantasy slash historical fiction. So that's on the table. I don't know anything about King Arthur. I've just heard this series, it's a 3-book series, is really good, and I like historical fiction, but it also has like fantasy sort of elements that I think I'll enjoy. Negatives behind it is really long chapters, and also it's not that long of a book, so that's a positive. I'm kind of in between that and then Gardens of the Moon, which is Malazan book 1, which is only 500 pages, 550, but like page 1 is on page like 30, so about 500 pages, and that's the gigantic epic. And I think I'm leaning towards Malazan, which Malazan has intimidated me so much just because the main series is a 10-book series. There's so many POVs, everything like that. But I feel like I want like a true fantasy series, because I haven't read any like true fantasy like Malazan before, except for maybe like what was I gonna say? The Blade itself, obviously, like Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, all his books, but I haven't read something like that in a really long time. And I feel the itch for something like really epic, and I've heard such great things about that series. And then the last option's Wayward Pines, which is book 2 of the Wayward Pines. That one I can probably, if I get through either one of those 2 decently quickly, I can fit Wayward Pines in a week. So if I get to like the final week and I need something else to read before the end, that might be it. And if I also finish Ashes Man, I'm going to start Disquiet Gods, because I'm trying to get to the end there. But those are the books I'm going to be reading for the rest of this month. Let me know if you have any suggestions, like, subscribe, all that jazz. But let me know if you have suggestions. Let me know what you're reading in the comments. That would be awesome. But thanks, guys.